Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the second round of ASR's GT3 World Championship in 2021, proudly powered by Antara Resort Style Living. And the series heads to Europe, where most of the racing this season will take place. The first round on home soil at Albert Park delivered quite an interesting and very, very tasty pair of sprint races. And it's off to Portugal for the very first time in community history. The Estoril circuit has undergone a lot of change over many, many years. It is just to the west of the capital, Lisbon, right down south in the bottom part of Portugal, right very, very close to the to the Atlantic Ocean. And 70 minutes is the duration of the racing tonight. So a little bit of a different format we alluded to last week. And to take you through all the action, it is myself, Steve DeVries, Josh Bagsy Bags, and Michael the Floodman Zalavari. Good evening, gentlemen.
Yeah, good evening, Nether. Good evening, Floody. It's good to be back. I've had a month away and some more GT racing in a more style we're used to with the endurance format, 70 minutes. And if you tuned in last time, you'll remember that it's 70 minutes because we want the drivers to feel a bit more of a squeeze on fuel. So we're going to have a very, very good race here in Estoril tonight.
Yeah, thanks, Bagsy. Thanks, Nether. Good evening, everyone. It's going to be an interesting time frame. Normally, we've done the 60-minute races in past seasons, but yeah, 70 is going to be right on the border point of fuel and tires. And I think, based on some of the running I've been doing and some of the stuff I've been hearing in the practice chat, that we might see a few more two-stoppers than we've seen in the past tonight.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what the strategy comes out with tonight. And of course, Bagsy, as he always does, will have that little scrapbook of his furiously flipping pages and scribbling down notes as he works out who's on what sort of fuel strategy. A lot of races in the past we've seen, as you mentioned, the 60-minute races, the 90-minute races, fuel tends to be about the 30 to 35-minute range. So a 70-minute race is going to be mighty tricky for the very first time that any of these drivers have had a race of that sort of length. There's a number of different schools of thought as to when you stop and how you drive the car. Do you go a little bit faster if you've got a car that consumes a bit more fuel and then try and have a short fill at the end and sort of sprint home? If you've got a car that's kinder to fuel, do you think you can actually make it a little bit longer than that 35-minute mark, you know, just by maybe preserving maybe 1 or 2 seconds a little bit extra on your lap time, and, you know, maybe just make it on one stop? Because remember, it is time plus one lap, and that's the little piece of the puzzle that the drivers need to figure out.
Yeah, it was. I was about to say the exact same thing there. The time plus one lap. So you've really this race could come down to when the leader crosses the finish line. It could be that the leader is having to slow down to be able to make it on fuel, or that they might speed up and be able to prevent someone from catching them because they get stuffed up with their calculations and don't have the fuel in hand. It's going to be very interesting. It's going to be interesting for us up here because we're not going to know exactly what their fuel mileage is, because people have been known to disguise their fuel mileage and they'll come in a little bit earlier and people will think, oh, well, we're totally set here, but it'll actually be they've got more in the tank than they're letting on and are able to save better than they're letting on.
Yeah, and the good thing about this track though tonight is that it's not really a fuel mileage track. It's not like a Monza or even an Albert Park. We saw a lot of people run into trouble last month out at Albert Park. So you can possibly stretch that fuel out to a second stint, or to only one stop. But it's going to be mighty, mighty tight. And we might see a few games, thinking back to Monza last year in the World Series, the fuel mileage games with no one really wanting to lead. We might see something similar to that tonight, if a few people, a group of people, are trying to extend out that second stint.
Yeah, that Monza race was manic, and I think as we get towards Monza a little bit later on this year, we'll probably sort of see exactly the same thing, because it is that 90-minute duration again, and putting that sort of mindset about how those drivers all behaved back last year into the same sort of principle tonight. There's not a lot of drafting available here. There's really only the front straight and a little bit of run down the back straight. Apart from that, you have probably spent about sort of 65% of your time on the power here. There is quite a number of corners where you have to just be very, very patient on the throttle. So a little bit of fuel saving can go a long, long way at a place like this. You said it's not exactly a fuel mileage race, but you can still buy yourself that little bit of an insurance policy. Places like Monza, you have to use the draft to buy yourself that insurance policy. So two really different types of driving style and schools of thought as to how you attack two very, very different tracks.
Yeah, we were talking before the broadcast about how this track, there's not many straights, and it's sort of like we said a poor man's Barcelona potential, or poor man's Algarve. Although I think thinking about it now, poor man's Barcelona might not be the best way to drive it, because I think the Barcelona track was made well after this one. So maybe Barcelona's the poor man's Estoril is more accurate.
I think I was the one who made that comment. I think it's more because Barcelona has the sort of clout that comes with the Formula One circuit, and all the racing that goes on to Barcelona, all the testing that goes on in Barcelona. Everyone sort of knows Barcelona, whereas this one's kind of a little bit of a forgotten gem from that. It's certainly something you'd know if you'd been watching bikes for the past 15 years. They used to run the Portuguese Grand Prix here. But it's something that doesn't get a lot of love, and it's certainly a track that deserves a lot of love, because we've seen some stellar races in sports cars, particularly here over the past few years, including, I might add, a 2015 European Le Mans Series that saw the finale of the European Le Mans Series that year, which saw basically the championships just get thrown out the window and a whole new championship start in that one race, just because everyone who was in a position to win the championship had problems.
Just getting ready to flick over to qualifying for the race tonight. Just the one race. So this is actually the third race out of all of the races in the championship this year. The 70-minute intermediate format. The first time for the community, and then the next time we go racing, we'll be back to the sprint format, and then we've got the 90-minute format that comes along after in round 4, which is going back to tracks that we've been familiar with for some time. There's a few tracks on the calendar this year we've been to previously, some new ones, and a few ones that have just brought up some of those weird and wonderful moments that we just keep referring back to all the time, Monza being one of them. Bahrain at the very end as well being one we're looking forward to as well. The session has just ticked over for qualifying. As we look at the garages there's a few cars just starting to be wheeled through into various positions on the grid. There's a few, a little bit of quiet hum in the paddock at the moment, in the pit lane. I actually think there's a balloon flying around somewhere out there as well. We just saw the shadow just go across the concrete there. I think gentlemen,
I think it's a helicopter.
There is actually
it is absolutely a balloon.
There is a balloon. There is a helicopter as well. I think I've seen both. So we're going to be looking very closely for where these little assets are. And
aviation enthusiasts will rejoice.
Yeah, there we go. We actually do have there they are, the helicopter and the balloon running along.
That is some great framing there, Nether.
That is fantastic. There we go. And you can see here the cars just starting to make their way out of pit lane. So Turmo heading the queue here, followed by one of the Audis. Sorry, the Audi, the Lamborghini Huracan. With his Taipan aboard, and behind him the first of the AAR Bentleys.
I can't get over how good the Bentleys look. The All-Australian Races team, whoever made those liveries, big thumbs up from me as a fan of the Settler Racing team in LMP2, who have now moved to a Ferrari 488 in the World Endurance Championship. But that is an absolutely cracking livery as the guys just make their way around on their out lap. 10-minute qualifying session to set the grid for the race. Only the one race, as Nether made mention. So this should be a bit of a frantic session.
It's a good day to like Bentleys, because about a third of the grid tonight is made up of them.
Yeah, there you go. So there was Ujit Mishra we had on screen just a few seconds ago. The other Bentley just tucked in there behind Taipan, or the AAR Bentleys, I should say, belongs to Lachlan Burke. The third Bentley, there it is. That one belongs to Steve Warwick, who we saw last time out at Albert Park in a little bit of the wars. And the fourth Bentley, we're just actually having a bit of a look through to see if we can find it, is another one of the AAR Bentleys, and it's in the hands of Lime Mitch. So there's 3 cars that look very, very similar. We're going to have a bit of a hard time trying to call them to work out which one is which. So please be patient with us if we don't sort of get that one right. And then there's the Warwick one. Whoa, and a bit wild on the exit of the final corner was Turmo, and that will hurt his run down this main straight.
Yeah, everyone's sort of tripping themselves up. We've also got one of the Bentleys in the background with an Audi behind it who are definitely going to be tripping them over themselves this lap as well. No one's done a very good job about making space. Admittedly, for Taipan, it's not his fault because Turmo made that mistake, but still, people fighting in the background and not setting optimal qualifying laps, even in the first sector.
Well, at least there's a 10-minute session for these guys to get it together, but the lap time here is about a minute 40. That's going to be the race lap come qualifying. It could be down to a minute 37 as Turmo just comes through. First sector in the books, it is a 25.7. That first sector just runs through to the exit of Curva VIP, not turn 4, where Turmo is now is the Parabolica interior on turn 6. Look pretty smooth through there. It's kind of a corner that encourages you to pick up the throttle earlier than you want, and then a little bit of a dip into this very difficult sector 3.
You're coming into the added section that was added to the circuit in the late 90s, or mid to late 90s, along with a raft of changes from when this circuit ran in its Formula 1 guys for many, many years. We have remarked quite often it does resemble a very, very similar sort of look and feel to Algarve when you look at it on paper. You overlay the 2 circuits on top of each other, they look very, very similar. But there has been a lot of corner reprofiling. The most noticeable ones of those is that chicane and down at turn 1, where it's gone from being that sort of 90-degree sweeping bends to a very abrupt stop and sort of like a 130-degree hook to turn 1. And a 138.8 from Turmo is the opening benchmark. Lime Mitch not that far behind, having actually dispatched of one of the Audis in that, and Turmo running off the road, and a few people, including second place man Lime Mitch, all running off the road, and the Bentley as well. They're all they're all out braking themselves at turn 1, which I'm not surprised. A number of drivers have been struggling with that part of the course.
And it's because the braking mark that you expect, the sort of darkened line on the track, is actually about 5, 10, 15 meters further back from where the actual braking point is. So yeah, not surprising to see a lot of cars sail off into the turn 1 gravel. We've got Greg Turra coming around to finish his first flying lap. He looks like he's had a good run of it as he crosses the line and goes top. Does he? Yes.
He does.
A very good run of it. The second.
37.7 for Greg.
And this is one of the BMW's strengths as well, the mid-corner speed relative to the bigger, heavier Bentleys. Able to corner very, very nimbly. You can see him there just sort of throwing the car around a little bit into turn 2. And very, very nicely, it almost looks like it's on rails at the moment. Just very smooth, even though he just gives it a huge wrench to the steering wheel. And the car just looks like it's sticking really well at the moment.
Does look very nice for Greg. His son Noah's also in the race. He's just looks like he's pottering around at the moment. So trying to find someone who's on a bit of a hot lap. We've got a bit of a drama with our timing at the minute, which is not ideal.
Here is his son Noah on screen at the moment. Currently P4, just been demoted down to 4th place after he was very briefly 3rd. And the 2 Turra cars look very, very similar. Just the number on the door a little bit different. 26 for Noah, and actually 26 for Greg as well at the moment. So I think they may have both ended up picking the wrong car at the moment, because they both got 2 different car numbers. And Noah's actually had a track violation on that lap, so he's going to go again. But we'll go on board with a lap here, Flood, as he negotiates turn 1.
So very tricky turn 1. It kind of drops down into that little bowl there, and then a swing through turn 2 rather. Almost flat, and then turn 3 braking and uphill. Very difficult to get the nose in. That's a feature of this circuit. Nicely done with the power into Curva VIP, turn 4. Oh, not so nicely done there. Lost the rears just a little bit, but he'll cut back on that apex for this, the second longest run on the track. Through the sweeper at turn 5, getting up into 4th gear, then 5th, for the Parabolica interior, the smaller Parabolica on the inside of the circuit. Again, another corner, again with the rears, really struggling with the rear of that car is Noah, as he tries to bring the power up. Just a little off the circuit here, and then a very difficult corner at turn 7 here. Again, struggling to get the front in is a problem at this track. Everywhere you want to understeer, then this is the added section to the circuit. Well over the curve here, and then into Gaucho. Left first, then right. It's basically straight uphill, almost like an inverted Laguna Seca corkscrew. Feather the throttle up back to 100% before this final corner, and then this the Parabolica. You can really, in qualifying trim here, flat out almost. A little bit of a safety lift there for Noah, but during the race, if the balance gets even a little sideways, it's going to get well out of shape, both in understeer and oversteer. Noah comes across the line. Not a great lap for him with the problems, but still good enough for second place. If he hooks that up, he could be well on the tail of his dad.
Well, it's a all-Tara front row at the moment, so this is getting very, very interesting, and with actually another interesting point that we'll have a look at the drivers' points after qualifying is over. But you're right, just a little bit of a couple of moments where the rear end got away. The first of those moments was coming up to this turn here, turn 4, and a little bit of lag on his side there. A little bit better run through turn 4 this time around, and look at the split there. So not that far off his father, only a 10th away. He loses most of it in this middle sector though.
And I think part of that was because of this big slide here again at the Parabolica interior. He's suffering what looks like a little bit of lag break up here, but that was a much better run as he dives back down the hill. Again, you just want to bring the throttle up as soon as possible, but it's just so difficult with the way that the corners all open out.
Yeah, all about timing. Bagsy.
Yeah, I was just thinking about the fact that we'll say how much better the BMW is with its mid-corner stability compared to the Bentleys, and Tara's still having a little bit of trouble. Just imagine what the guys in the Bentleys are having. And I'm wondering if the showing that they're giving here, as looks like Lime Mitch has actually jumped in between the two Taras while we're watching Noah, if the BMWs are going to start going backwards in the race if the Bentleys can keep up with them in the midfield, then once it gets to the straights, they're really going to struggle and going to be passed fairly easily, I think.
And Lime Mitch is actually up by quite a significant margin on this lap as well. So he's only 2/10 off the top time for for Greg Tara at the moment. So Greg Tara, the only man under 1 minute 38. It looks like we're going to get a second car with just under a minute to go in qualifying that will go into the 37s. And Lime Mitch, no, it fades late. So lost a lot of time through that final corner after being up well and truly before he got to Parabolica.
Yeah, it's a personal best for him and a personal best for Noah Tara when they went across the line, but no one's able to touch Greg Tara at the moment. He is on fire so far.
And still going again as well, so he's having another crack at it, but this lap is, better part of 3/4 of a second down at the first sector split.
Termo, who has just gone through the first sector split, I believe, was only 600ths of a second down on Greg Tara's time.
And Tara's aborted the lap and gives Termo the free run of the track here. So the clock is now gone with just a few seconds remaining in this session, and most of the top 3 are all in the lane. So there's only a couple of drivers left that can improve their time. Scott Murrell is one in P6, and he is still he's actually quite substantially off the pace. Urjit Mishra, Pierre Roy, and Taipan are the only ones yet to improve. Termo throws it into Gaucho, and there's big slide, and that will have cost him a lot of time there as well. The sector time, I think, will agree, and yes, it has agreed an awful amount that was not a wise thing to do, and he will probably stay where he is as he comes to the line. So you'll see the checker this time around, a little bit backside of the curb, and the next men that we are waiting to see the arrival of, I believe, will be Taipan in the Lamborghini, and then I think that will be the last, and Urjit Mishra. Yeah, actually, Urjit Mishra is the next one to come across the line with Pierre Roy right behind.
Yeah, Taipan was the last to come.
Pierre Roy off. Oh, well and truly off the circuit.
Absolutely gone. Oh, and he's back, and he's gone again. Urjit Mishra does not improve on his position, but that was, I think, after that session, Turmo may be one to watch because he definitely had the pace there to get up with Greg Tara, but may not just wasn't quite able to string it together over that one lap.
And a late improvement from
Taipan
Taipan
improved.
too. But look at the margin, like he was only up by 0.087 at the end of it, but still actually made him one spot. So there's a few tight positions in that midfield.
He somehow managed to slot between Ujit Mishra and Pierre Roy, who themselves are only separated by 0.03 of a second.
That's right. Well, Greg Tara, I think this is the first time in a long time we've actually seen a Tara on the front row. This actually might be the first pole for Greg Tara. I'm not quite sure. We'll have to go back and have a look in the record books for this one, but a front row start for him, along with Lion Mitch for AAR and Bentley, and then Noah Tara third with Turmo fourth. So a good result there. It is a smaller field than usual tonight, gentlemen, so that's one thing we probably need to keep a little bit interested in, is that it's a 70-minute race, but there is only 11 cars out there. A few of the regular drivers not able to make it tonight. Yeah,
it's a bit unfortunate, all things considered. We are experimenting with the Saturday night, and it looks like this particular Saturday has seen a few guys unavailable to make it. But you can still have an enthralling race with 11 cars, and with the sort of gaps that we're seeing throughout the field, it looks like that's going to be the case.
Yeah, and Nether, you can attest to the fact that I know we've had races we've seen races at Phillip Island with only 4 or 5 cars that have managed to be very exciting. So 11 should make it very easy.
Yeah, for us, you're not wrong there at all. Well, what we will do is let's have a bit of a look at the calendar as we've been through so far, and then we'll have a look at the track overview and some drivers' points. So here is how the progress has gone so far. We started a couple of weeks ago in Melbourne. There it was there, the Albert Park circuit, and the winner of those races, Luke Rosella. He actually won both the races, and he actually is on top of the point standings as a result. No surprises there. Off to continental Europe we go, as we said, off to the west of the Portuguese capital of Lisbon for the second round tonight at the Circuito do Estoril. And as we flip over to our race information here, Bagsy, you can see here, this circuit looks very, very similar to another Portuguese circuit that we've dropped the name of a few times tonight.
Yeah, as we said earlier, it's got a very much a striking similarity to Algarve, and definitely a passing similarity to the Barcelona circuit, the Catalunya circuit that most people will know from Formula One. But this circuit does have its own unique character. Although all the corners look similar in some way, they all definitely have their own profile. You notice that the corners at the end of Sector 1, the start of Sector 2, it's like Barcelona, but they're a little bit tighter and a little bit harder to get perfect. You've got the kink coming through the middle of Sector 2 that is also quite difficult, and the chicane at the end of Sector 2, which I'm not going to try to pronounce because I know I'll stuff it up, but it's very tricky. We saw Turmo go absolutely deep in there. He was trying to push the time, but it will absolutely cost you. You saw it cost him a second, and honestly, most of the second that he lost in that sector would have been that one incident. So it's a circuit that is going to be tricky to stay focused on it for 70 minutes, honestly, because there are plenty of places that you seem easy but can really catch you out.
And the focus, Bagsy, that's going to be used a great word there. It's certainly a circuit which is a bit stop-start and a very much a mental toll. There's not really any time where you get a break. The only exception is that main straight. But trying to manage the strategy of tonight, whether it is one stop or 2 stops, or if it is 2 sets of tyres or 1 set of tyres, while trying to manhandle your way around this circuit with its long opening camber corners and those really sharp braking zones, it's going to be a struggle. And I wouldn't be surprised to see an increase in little mental mistakes in the second half of the race.
Yeah, this race really could in the end come down to not predominantly driver skill, but driver strategy. We've seen that some people do tend to struggle with the strategy more than others. Some people are much more prepared. They come in knowing what they want to do. They've done their practice. They know I'm going to do this, this, and this. Other people, though, tend to take it a bit more free-flowing, and they just work it out on the fly. And it can honestly have very good results, because when you've spent all this time pre-planning, sometimes you don't have that room for improvisation on the strategy, and you just are so tunnel visioned on your strategy that you forget that it is a dynamic situation and things may change. So it's an interesting balance to strike for sure.
That's a pretty good discussion point, Bagsy, you raised there. You both yourself and Nether have raced in series around Automobilista before. What do you do going into a race like this? You got 70 minutes. What sort of things do you practice during the week? What sort of information do you need? And then when it comes to the race, how do you go about setting it up and executing that race?
For myself, the biggest thing is the fuel number. How much are you burning a lap, and how is that going to work out? And often that can change from when you're doing your practice and then you get into the actual server, just because things like the track grip that's being used, and sometimes when you're following another car, you're saving a surprising amount of fuel that you don't realize, and you can take that into account. And the other thing that generally you can't simulate is safety cars or of the like, where you don't know what could happen with that if the series has safety cars. So I personally, all I did was get my fuel number that I expected to have, and then I would come up with my strategy on the fly, essentially. And I felt that served me best because it allowed for that adaptation and improvisation.
Yeah, fair enough. I think that's probably the way to go. You can kind of become a bit over analysis paralysis with it all, trying to work out exactly how much fuel you're burning and exactly what your numbers are and exactly where you have to pit and exactly. But yeah, as you made mention, it's a very dynamic platform. When I've had success in other series I've raced in the past, I always used to find that if I knew my own critical lap, and I could jump into on a position where that worked, and I could get out in a place where it was free of traffic, then that would be what I do. But it is a very complex game, and for some people they might just be jumping into the server for the first time tonight and doing their first run of practice tonight live in the official practice server. So it'll be interesting to see who has done the work behind those numbers and who is working it out on the fly. Nether, what about you? What do you kind of look for when you're looking at strategy in these longer races?
Apologies, guys. Just getting a couple of things in order here. Flood, I think you were just asking me a question, and I completely missed it. Go.
What do you think about when you're looking at these strategy for these longer races? Are you obsessed with your fuel numbers and your tire strategy, or are you more looking at what everyone around you is doing and trying to figure out where you slot in?
I actually want to run my own race. My biggest issue is I want to look at what my fuel burn is and calculate my fuel strategy first. When I then have a look at where everybody else is on track relative to me, one of my strong suits has always been to do my math on the fly. Even just, sort of half numbers is easy enough for me to work out. If I'm getting, 3.6 litres per lap, for example, I can then extrapolate that and go, right, I am on track to meet this, or I can work backwards from a number and then decide if I want to pit early or if I want to pit later, depending on how strong I feel I am in the car. But for me, the key thing is the fuel. If you can get your head around fuel, especially at a track where you're not so much having to be worried about tyre life and tyre degradation, your flexibility in terms of your pit strategy is enormous. It is the sole biggest driving thing. When it's tyres, though, that's where the struggle, I think, starts to come in for me, and probably for a number of drivers as well. It's because it's all about feel. It's not a numbers game anymore. It's all about feel.
And that, I think, will be the predominant issue tonight. It is not a fuel burn circuit. As we made mention, it's a bit Mickey Mouse in parts. It's very start-stop, especially that final sector. But for tires, the tires around here are tortured. Those long corners, the curve VIP, the parabolica interior, the run through the chicane and the S's, and then the parabolica art and center. Loading up the tires on those long corners is basically the equivalent of hell for these poor bits of rubber. And you might see, tires be the contributing factor come the end of the race.
Well, let's actually have a bit of a look at while we're talking about tyres. Sorry, guys. Let's actually bring up the drivers' point standings, because this is an interesting dilemma that we need to have a look at. Excuse me if you can just hear a couple of little things going on my throat at the moment, because out of the list of drivers you can see on your screen there, who do you think is actually the better driver that can manage their tyres over the course of a stint. Not so much on the fuel numbers, but on the tyres. There's a handful of them that are not here tonight either, so pick carefully.
I'll let Bagsy tackle this one first.
I'll be honest, Greg Tara is the one that really jumps out at me because he hasn't always been running around at the front. So sometimes he's not on the broadcast, but he is definitely going along and making things work for him. It's a bit hard to have told from the last race because they were sprint races and not tyre limited. But I think he is the one that stands out to me, and also at the front, we kind of on his tyres potentially.
For me, it's all the people who aren't here. Luke Rosella, Lewis Wedding, they'd be the first two names that I'd pull out of the mix for being good on their tires. So it's a bit of a surprise. Oh, not so much of a surprise, sorry, but it's a bit harrowing that they aren't here on a racetrack that they would absolutely perform at. But yeah, I think Greg Tara has the right mix of experience and maturity to manage himself tonight and to take the win, because he's the one who's got the pace at the minute from qualifying, and I think he's got maybe a little bit of a just experience and maturity over the mental side of his son. We've seen Noah do fantastic things in terms of this GT3 Sprint Series last time. I remember Okayama, which was an incredible race right to the very death, but I don't think he has the temperament for a full 70-minute race. The one at the top of the standings that's here tonight, Termo, what do we think on his chances? Do we think he has the temperament and the skill to manage his tyres across tonight?
It's going to be interesting because part of it is not just managing tyres, but how comfortable you feel. Because you might get halfway through the race and think, okay, I've gone through my tyres, 30% of my tyres, 40% of my tyres. I can run these to the end. They're not going to blow up on me. But how comfortable will I be then? And how much lap time am I going to be losing? Because the extra time you take putting those tyres on might not equate to the amount of lap time you're losing. Because as the tyres slowly degrade, you're going to be losing time, sure, but you are slowly adapting to that slipperier driving style. And also, as the fuel load burns down as well, you're not going to be putting so much pressure on them. So it is about that comfort and how you feel. Some people just don't like a slippery car, so they're going to change regardless because they know that that's what they need to do to be able to go fast. And we could see not just diverging fuel, but also diverging tyre strategies tonight, which will be very interesting.
Yeah, the different types of makes and models of car and their different characteristics, like your front engine, mid-engine turbo, rear-wheel drive, all those sorts of rear engine. Porsches, I think there's only one of those here tonight. They're all going to have a say, I think, not just in the fuel mileage of this race, but also in how badly some of these cars end up with their tyres and their tyre life. Interestingly enough, you look at that graphic there, there are a couple of drivers already tied on points after the opening round, and that's just due to the way the sprint format points work. It's 25 points for a sprint race win. There's 2 races a night, and of course Luke Rosella winning both those races means he is a perfect 50 points out of a maximum 50 on the top of the table. And then Termo and Bolger tied on points, the better result going to Termo with a podium finish in one of those races at Albert Park, so therefore he gets the gong as being the man in 3rd place. And likewise, Noah Tara actually ahead of his father, but despite the fact that they're both tied on points, he actually had a 6th place finish in one of those races, where Greg's best, I think, was 8th, if memory serves me correctly. So already a number of drivers that had an average race in race 1, and then in race 2 last time out had a better race, and vice versa as well. There were those differing fuel strategies and different ways and schools of thought about how everything came together at the end of the day. And it all leads to a nice little points sheet that, while it's only a round deep out of 10, there is still a very, very long list of subplots being written here, gentlemen.
Yeah, it certainly is, as we hear the siren that indicates we're going to the track for the race soon. Yeah, it's this series, and especially mentioned we're going to be on Saturday nights, so there might be times when people can't show up to this. So it could be a very interesting end to this. If it could just be who's able to be more consistent and rock up, but I think everyone's going to have times when they're not able to show up. So it could be who makes the most of the opportunities they have is probably the most important thing.
Yeah, I think you're spot on there. It'll be one of those ones that if you can maximise your points haulage on nights where you have a lot of people there, on nights where there's not so many drivers, it will be a little bit easier for your points and championship standings at the end of the day. You can see we've got our safety car being driven in the manual fashion again, so this is a new initiative for this year, that the manual safety car takes everybody around. Now, I have been getting some word here that there is a bit of, looks like there might be a bit of a drama here. They're just waiting for a couple of seconds just to get a few things in order. They only need a small amount of time to do the lap, 2 minutes and 40 seconds, I think it was, and there was an extra 3 minutes on the clock. So,
yeah, I believe
like we might actually be in the midst of a restart here, I believe. It looks like we've gone back to the garages, so just waiting to see what might be happening there. Maybe might be a little bit of a delayed start, I think. A couple of people that maybe
I believe
not in the
they'll
right
be
spot.
About 25 seconds they'll be waiting on the grid for.
Yeah, that's the word that I've had coming through as well. The timing about getting all of the drivers and everything together is the biggest drama. And I think that maybe with people sitting on the grid for the extra time, maybe just sort of caused a little bit of dramas. I know that the game has a few issues with when you set the time for how long you want the race to run. Normally we set it for a race like this, we set it for 70 minutes, but we need to account for an extra couple of minutes for the manual safety car lap, so we get the extra few laps in and the extra bit of time in, but you can only do it by whole numbers. So you can't sort of say an extra 2 minutes and 40 seconds on the top of the race time. It's got to be whole numbers. So here we go. We're just getting underway now as we'll go back to live pictures. And off we go. Well, Bagsy, let's have a look at this grid for the 70-minute race.
Yes, we've got a very nice looking grid here today in Estoril. Pole position, Greg Tara with that blistering lap in qualifying. He's going to be very happy with that, as it seems like we're restarting again. So I will pause for a moment and get back to that soon. Seems like we're having some slightly more technical issues.
Yeah, a very peculiar start to the evening's proceedings, it looks like. Yeah, I guess this is one of the old Automobilista things that we've just got to contend with. Fantastic platform, Automobilista, for this sort of stuff. Have we had a week in ASR where there hasn't been some sort of Automobilista problem?
Not with GT3s, I don't think we have. With some of the other series, we've had quite a few lucky breaks with getting things done, but not so much.
I mean ASR on a whole. Because we run so many series here. We've had supercars during the week. We had TCAC on Wednesday as well, and that one had its own problems. That had a track with a hole in it. But yeah, have we had a week where we haven't had anyone anyone run into server problems?
Yeah, here we go. I think we might actually have this one with a bit of luck sorted out now.
I maybe, but there's been an immediate incident off the start grid there. Someone ended up in the wall.
Yeah, so
I'm not sure who that was, but
we've worked out. I think they've worked out what's going on now. So they've actually got this sorted, which is good. And Greg Tara leads this field. So we'll go back to Bagsy for the grid.
All right, take two, or actually take three. This is the second time they got off the line though. Greg Tara pole position with an excellent lap in his BMW. In second place, the first of many Bentleys, Lime Mitch, who is going to be looking to challenge Greg Tara very quickly off the start. Noah Tara, son of Greg Tara, lined up behind his father. He'll be looking to dethrone him in this 70-minute race. Fourth place, Termo, who was looking very racy in qualifying, but had that slight incident that means he is starting from 4th, but is every chance in this race as he finished ahead of all these people who were ahead of him last time out. 5th place, Scott Murrell in the Audi. 6th place, Steve Warwick in the Black Shores Bentley. Richard comes out of 7th place in the Settler All-Australian Racing, the second of those Bentleys, All-Australian Racing Bentleys. Taipan starting from 8th in his Lamborghini. 9th place is Pierre Roy for Team ASR. Nathan Higginson starts from 10th place in his BMW. The last of the All-Australian Racing Bentleys, Lachlan Burke, is starting from 11th place. Brian Walsh in his wonderful Wildcat Playboy Nissan GTR starts from 12th. And Steve Bolger for Gravel Rush Racing has made it in, and he is starting from the back of the field in 13th in his Ferrari.
I'll tell you what, he must have moved house in record time if he's getting here, because he was scheduled not to make it tonight because he was definitely looking down the barrel of not having his sim rig up in time to make the grid. So good to see that reigning World Series champion is back in the fight. He's going to have a lot of work to do.
Clearly has his priorities sorted and has his internet set up all ready to go.
Just his internet, but his rig and everything as well.
Or he's hotspotting, one of the two.
One of the two. Now, there was a little bit of conjecture last time out at Albert Park about passing out of your row. So the verdict was that because of this rolling formation, if you could do your best to keep within your row, there wouldn't be a problem. But if you passed another car alongside you on the run to the start-finish line, that was okay if you got a better start than they did. But in the event that you passed a car in the next row, there would be a penalty. So in this case, safety car comes in, the field lines up, and the 13 cars that are on the grid here are about to go racing for 70 minutes around the Portuguese circuit of Estoril, and here we go. Nice clean start so far. Greg Tara gets the early hole shot, and Lime Mitch tucks into the slipstream on the run to turn 1. Now this is the tricky part here, getting through turn 1 on lap 1, and looks like everybody's done a pretty good job of that so far. Everybody well behaved and just playing sensible for the moment, and the field is cleanly through the opening 2 turns. Although I say that, there was a little bit of argy-bargy going on between the AAR Bentleys of Lachlan Burke and Ujjav Mishra just as they came out of 2.
Yeah, Steve Bolger off the back of the grid there. He stayed well back and is currently continuing to stay well back to avoid any mischief that might happen in the midfield. So going with the long call, it's a 70-minute race, and he is well aware of that, making sure any incidents he stays well away from.
Is this an early smart play on fuel bags? This is what we were talking about a little bit earlier about, do you maybe knock a little bit of lap time off your ultimate pace and go the avenue of trying to make it on that one stop? Remember, Steve Bolger was the pioneer in the very first race at Albert Park, and he was out in front, and he had to stop very, very late, almost on the last lap of the time plus 1 lap race, and ultimately fell through the order. I think he recovered to 4th in that race. So is he playing an early strategy card here?
Yeah, it's hard to tell. Is he playing the early strategy card, or is it that he hasn't had much practice and he might be struggling a little bit potentially?
Tara's off the first corner, last corner. Sorry to interrupt you guys, but Greg Tara, a race leader, just sprayed it a little wide at the final corner, and Lime Mitch is all over them as he comes down the main straight, pulls to the inside, does the Bentley of Lime Mitch, hits the brakes. They're going to go side by side through turn 1. Lime Mitch has the high ground and makes the move. So Lime Mitch now in the lead of the race, and the 2 Taros. Oh, and there's a spin in the background. That's Nathan Higgins and Steve Warwick, it looks like.
Yeah, yep, spot on there, Flood. There's a little bit of argy-bargy between Higginson and Steve Warwick, and they're sort of just pressing on a bit here as Warwick has a look down the inside, and another look sort of half spin as all the Bentleys mixing up here. Steve Warwick looking very, very racy at the moment, and Higginson just like watching Brief, I think, at the moment. Look at here he is from the onboard. He doesn't know where to go. He's just got a wall of Bentleys and a fistful of grass to boot.
Very lucky to escape there without pitching in his the wall. This group here, this trio of Bentleys, they're attached at the hip at the moment as they come into interior Parabolica, and Warwick, a very narrow line, and Mishra just comes back across the front of him and make a bit of contact side to side, but it's all fair in love and war here, and it's definitely the war part of that at the moment.
Speaking of interior Parabolica, just before that, what we saw, Termo managed to get up the inside of Nawatara there and has taken 3rd place.
Predictions starting to come to the fore here about Bagsy, maybe thinking that Termo might be the sleeper in this race and getting an early move done on the younger of the 2 Taras in the field. Not that far behind Greg. Now we get a real indication of the ultimate flying lap time they've had. This is their first flying lap at full chat. And we'll wait to see what the times flash up. The top 5 guys probably all going to be around this 1:39.5 second mark, because they all look pretty close together, and Scott Murrell's doing a pretty good job to hang in here as well on the back end of the top 5. And these top 5, despite the fact that there's a little bit of a gap between them, they have sort of broken away quite quickly from the rest of the field.
And that's, and we've got a Bentley well off in the gravel at turn 1.
Mishra.
That is Ujit Mishra. He was in 6th place just a moment ago, but now finds himself, very weird moment there.
Let's have a look at that one on the Antara result style living replay, because that was coming down into turn 1. Just looks like he got the braking completely wrong, and it was all on his own. He wasn't helped, just way too late on the brakes, and yeah, he was well off in the kitty litter. Did well to pull it up before the wall, and he dropped a bunch of spots in the process, so he's dropped at least 4 spots there.
It looks like he even locked the rears as well, because he jackknifed himself further off the circuit. So I wonder if he's actually plucked the rears and then tried to catch it in the middle of going off.
Yeah, it looked a little bit of weird. It just looked like the car just didn't pull up at the rate you expected to, so maybe you're right on that one.
Just been spending, as Ujit Mishra has spun off again. I've been on board with Steve Bolger for the last lap and a half or so just to see what the go is, and I don't think he's doing a fuel saving strat. I think he just has not had the practice and is taking a little bit of time to get used to the circuit, and probably doesn't have a setup for his car either. So he's just going and trying to keep things together, and I'm sure we'll see him improving in pace as the race goes on.
Late dive. Yeah, late dive from Greg Tara. Had a bit of a real hard think there about a move on Lime Mitch, and it didn't come off. It was a little day late and a dollar short, and maybe just didn't have enough purchase on the inside of one, because Mitch was already committed to the corner. There was a bit of side-to-side contact, and Tara thought discretion was a better part of valor, and just settled back in behind the number 13 for the moment. Tell you what, and Lime Mitch is no slouch either, because he's got that race win under his belt from that epic race at Bahrain last year in the Sprint Series as well. So he knows how to drive these cars.
Yeah, absolutely. It looked like Taro had just gone a little deeper onto braking and pulled out more so just to not collect Lime Mitch than he did to try and affect the pass. You could see Lime Mitch start to turn into the corner and then back it off again. But Taro made that move, or made that attempt off the back of setting the fastest lap of the race of 38.9. So he's really got the hammer down and is putting that blue Bentley, that number 13 car, under some terrific pressure early on in the race.
Yeah, you're saying just before Nether about Lime Mitch getting that win in Bahrain, and we saw what happened with Steve Bolger after he got his breakthrough win, which went on an absolute tear. Are we starting to see a similar thing with Lime Mitch? He's got the first one, and now more are desired.
I would imagine you're probably spot on there. He has, once he gets one under his belt and he gets comfortable in the cars. I mean, admittedly, last year he was driving the BMW, the same car that Nathan Higginson and that Greg Tara and Noah Tara driving. And Tara tries the same move again. You're not quite close enough on that occasion, Greg. You got your nose cut off, and big commitment from Scott Murrell in the background as well. Just lucky to avoid giving Noah Tara a wallop for good measure, and that now splits this group up here. Greg's all over the back of Lime Mitch here. They're playing for sheep stations at the minute. Greg is giving the Bentley a real hurry up.
It looks like Greg is just all round better through the corners on braking and in the mid corner as well. Lime Mitch is already going very defensive, but as soon as he gets to a straight bit of road, he pops out and he gets out to a 3-4 car length lead.
And Termo's starting to hone in on them as well here.
Yeah, that's what you said, Play. That is something that we did just say in qualifying may end up happening because of the way the BMW is just so good in this middle section. But it's he just seems.
And Lion Mitch is just going to wheel on the grass. And that's probably going to be enough for Taro to get through on the inside as they come into Gancho. No, Taro has to back out of it.
Yeah, wrong side.
Taro, yeah, he realised, there's a big wallop in the back from Turbo as well. These four are accordoning, that's not a word, back and forth. But it's so close, and you just feel like everything could go terribly very shortly.
Here's the view from Turbos on board at the top roof mounted camera shot. You can see a few different lines starting to be taken in, and Greg's definitely not within striking distance of Lion Mitch on this occasion, so he's going to be safe for the time being as they head down the hill. Just this is where they pluck the brakes here for turn 1 to get the braking right. So you can see here where they actually hit the anchors in order to pull the car up safely, and you can probably understand just from looking at that particular piece of footage why some drivers will be struggling.
It's a bit of a misnomer there, having that darkened patch a bit further down the hill. It's just I got caught out by that a few times in practice as well, so it doesn't surprise me at all that everyone's having trouble with it. Turbo is looking very, very smooth through those section of corners. You can see that he actually pulled up the car at turn 1 and at turn 2 just a little earlier than Greg Taro, and made the apex just a little nicer. Especially at turn 1, the fact that it just sort of drops in and bowls in. If you get that apex right where you want it, it actually kind of slings you towards that faster turn 2. But once again, Lion Mitch just a little slower through the interior parabolica, and Greg has just eased away into that gap once again. It's now only 2 or 3 car lengths as opposed to 5 or 6 as it was as they come through Gancho. And just an aside, while I've got you guys here, we've had a pit stop caller, Pierre Roy, already in through the pits, maybe committing very early to the 2-stop.
I believe that may have been due to damage. He had a spin coming out or through the final corner and hit the inside wall. So I think that may have been to fix up damage.
And Ujit Mishra as well has come through the pits. So 2 pit callers, and it looks like in the background I saw Lion Mitch. He almost made a run for the pits, but has elected to stay out on track.
I think he's also trying to break the toe there, Flood, as well, just to make sure he can keep Greg Taro at bay. He knows that in a straight line, it's not the best, and the Bentley's sort of not the best all-round handling car, but he needs to do something to stop Taro from having a nibble at him in a place like this down here at turn 3, and he's got this move done now. So that's Taro up to the lead, and he's going to be able to hold it here through turn 4, and he just needs to just check up a little bit here just to pull some momentum away, and he does just that. And now that gives Turbo a little bit of an incentive to buy in. And as you mentioned, the lap traffic that has already come through the lane is just ahead of these guys. Pierre Roy is the first man. And you're right, he's come in and had a bit of damage to repair. Likewise, Ujit Mishra. He might start to come into play here in a few minutes. There he is, bottom of your screen. So another complicating factor for this leading group of 4 now, not so much 5. I think Scott Morrill, after that run wide at the first corner, has dropped off the tail. But Lion Mitch hasn't given it away just yet. He's certainly keeping Taro honest at the head of the field as they come through Gancho. Interesting to me that a few guys are using the full rev range in first gear out of Gancho. I found it very much a struggle to get to that high rev point in first gear. Would you expect to try to get the traction down to use a short shift there? But this time, Taro's the one snaking across the main straight.
And I'd like to say a quick thank you to Tim Redmond for the word accordioning.
Yes, I was about to say there's a bit of a chatter in the live chat about your invention of words here, Bags. I think I've done it once or twice before and been picked up on it. And yeah, accordioning. I'm trying to work out whether I know what you were trying to say. It's like they are collapsing up like an accordion or folding up like an accordion, but
yeah, like going in and out in that. Yeah.
Commonly, I think what they call them in this part of Europe, don't they call them a squeeze box, or is that American? I'm getting confused here.
It sounds simple, so it might be American.
Yeah, I think let's go with American. Well, that's actually America is our next stop on the calendar as well. We're going to Laguna Seca at the end of the month for a pair of sprint rounds. Laguna Seca, a circuit we haven't been to since the championship decider of the very first GT3 series in 2018, and that was the fight that was between Brock Harvey and Lewis Wedding.
That is a throwback. Those are Brock particularly is the name that hasn't been around for a little while. Just want a quick shout out to Pierre Roy. They're doing a great job to get away from this leading pack and letting them all fly past. So well done, Pierre. It's exactly what the lap traffic is needed to do to keep this battle at the front very put together. And Lion Mitch gets a great run through Gancho that time.
Yeah, he's keeping tabs on Tara the same way that Steve Warwick and Nathan Higginson have been keeping tabs on each other for the last couple of laps as well, and Taipan's starting to just get a little bit close to these two as well. And then we go back to the main straight, and here we go. The snaking across the grass is on again. Pierre Roy's having a bit of a moment on the grass there. He just singing his praises, and then he has a bit of an issue there. And is Light Mitch going to send this again at turn 1? He is, and he gets up there, but he's just not able to apply the power.
Better drive for Tara. Yeah, Tara just had so much better drive.
So Tara continues to hold the lead, and I get the impression here that, guys, that we were talking about Turmo, and he's just biding his time here. He's really not interested at the moment in trying to fight for position. He wants to wait and see what these guys do and just sort of hang in there, and if there's mistakes made, pounce.
How long were tyres again? Was that an extra 30 seconds for tyres in this series?
Yeah, we're looking down the barrel of about 30 seconds for tyres on this one, and this pit lane is very, very similar in length to Albert Park, so that gives you an idea of what the transit time is going to be. It's not exactly a short stop, and as you can tell by the likes of Pierre Roy having been lapped already, even though he's had a bit of damage to go.
I'm just going to interrupt you, Nether. Higginson and Warwick have been side by side for most of the first sector, and they're just coming through interior Parabolica now. A little bit of a moment there for Higo in the process of getting past.
Yeah, the older generation and the younger generation. Steve Warwick, one of the elder gentlemen in the sim racing community, and Nathan Higginson, one of the youngest, and both showing a huge amount of maturity here, just being able to stay off each other and race very, very cleanly. And their battling has allowed Taipan in the Lamborghini to close this margin very, very quickly now. He's sort of halved what it was a lap ago when we last had a look at them. Have a look at Warwick here, just really harassing. Harass, stay. All under the rear wing of that Higginson BMW. And here comes the slipstream. You can see gaining. Higginson takes the defensive line, takes it early, going to force Warwick to go the long way around. And Higginson has to back it in to make the apex.
Did a great job there. It seems like the BMW has a little bit more braking power. The same story between Lion Mitch and Tara. BMW can just brake a few meters later than the other one. This time the Bentley gets right in there. Warwick really throwing it into the rear of... Oh, and he goes the switchback as well. And this time there's no defending that. Oh, well done, Steve Warwick.
That's a veteran's move, isn't it? Just seize the gap and just wrestled it away. Like that's, I think the Stairs has used the terminology on me once or twice about being a canny old fox, and that is the move of a canny old fox. If ever I saw one, just absolute perfect situational awareness and just wrestled that away with no second guessing.
Oh, very exciting for a moment there. Well done from Steven. Let's just quickly get back to this pit lane. You made mention it's about the same length as Albert Park, but a key defining feature of this pit lane is its exit. It's a very narrow and a very tight exit, and it wouldn't surprise me at all as Higginson is overlapping again with Warwick as they come through the S's. It's on the wrong side of the road there to make a move, but it could set something up around the Parabolica and center. Aims to get a good run, got a nice inside run over the curb. And it looks like he might even have a K or two over the Bentley as they come down the straight. Bit hard to tell with the slightly moving cameras, but here comes Higginson towards the inside. Does hit the anchors a little later and takes that position back. So Warwick's going to do the Foxy maneuver once again.
Yeah, he's got that move well and truly worked out, hasn't he, Nathan Higginson? He's just sort of all got it completely under control at the moment. Coming back to what you were talking about, Flood, if we go and have a look here at the exit for pit lane. You can see there it is, running side by side with the main straight. Then there's that inside move that cuts off for the first turn, and there's the tyre barriers waiting for you on the outside on your left as you round that corner. So you can't take it at any great clip. You have to be very, very careful. And then you've also got to watch the blend line on the pit exit and just be very, very sure that before you move across to assume that racing line, that you are clear. That's the most redeeming feature of that. You've got to be very, very aware of your surroundings before you commit to moving across track.
It's a bit difficult with it. It's a bit like the Daytona 24-hour circuit, the infield circuit. A very willing wall, very happy to meet you if you get just a little out of shape. So $5 says someone. Oh, Higginson.
Oi! Higginson has a bit of a slide through the grass there. And Taipan will have him here on the inside of Parabolica. So very, very unusual spot to be having a slide, worthy of a look at this one on the Antara Resort Style Living replay. Just how did he do this? So he's right under the rear wing of Bentley. There's just a little bit of inside curb, a bit too much curb. Yep, that's all it was. Had a bit too much on, and geez, did a very good job to keep it pointing the right direction there. And in the recovery process, lost the spot to the Lamborghini.
It's going to the, we were talking about the pit lane, and obviously the main thing about the pit lane is your tyres. And it's going to be a very interesting decision for the drivers to make, because the tyres can last the whole race. They will be able to make it to the end, but they will look atrocious by the end. So the question is, do you want to change the tyres or not? Are you going to lose that 30 seconds in the race if you gain them in the pit lane by not taking tyres? So it's going to be, I feel like it's going to be a decent split, but it could just be everyone plays it safe, because no one wants to throw away a win on a maybe. So it might just be easier to go for it in that regard and keep the tyres and, you know, reduce your risk.
That's a very good point, Bagsy. The thing is, though, we've seen no drop off in pace from the top of the field. Everyone in that top group is still setting 38s, or at least Torra is, and the field hasn't dropped back too far from him. So it might become a necessity to change your tyres. So do you do it first? Do you do it in the first stop and then try to run to the end, or do you do it in the second stop, assuming you make a second stop, and try and keep that good rubber for the final push at the end?
I feel like it wouldn't be worth, if you're doing a two-stop, it wouldn't be worth doing it on the second stop, because you're not going to have the time to use those new tyres. I think if you're going to do it, you're going to have to do it on the first. If you're making two stops, you have to do it on the first stop. If you're doing one stop, then you might as well do it to avoid that risk of a mistake or being just caught and passed super easily.
Well, think about it this way too, gentlemen. The option is there to take fronts or rears or both. So there might be another element to this equation that a number of drivers might be considering, depending on whether they are a one-stop or a two-stopper tonight. If you're a one-stopper, I mean, the argument for me is pretty simple. You take tyres. You can't afford not to. If you're a two-stopper, depending on if you're getting a stop out of the way nice and early, or if you're going to be a late splash and dash, will be the deciding factor if you need to take a set of fronts or a set of rears, or no tyres at all, depending on how you've looked after your tyre life. So who is going to be the driver that can look after their tyres the most to, and if they need to stop for a second time, that they can just do a splash of fuel and maybe pop in a couple of 3 or 4 laps to get to the finish and do the job on a single tyre exchange, rather than going and losing that extra 30 seconds.
See, this is the thing. One of the things I was talking about earlier, between making up a strategy on the fly and actually thinking about it pre-race. If I was racing in this race, I'd be aiming to make my second stop with about 15 minutes left and put the new tyres on then, so that way you do have enough time to get a yield out of them. If you are, on the other hand, running that second stint as long as you can, and you might only need to do 3 or 4 laps at the end, you might elect to take your tires earlier. It's one of those things that if you've got to commit, if you commit to a strategy, you kind of have to commit really early. You can't really make that up on the fly in that instance. So I'd be looking to sort of break the race into 3 almost, and take those that new tires with the enough time in the race remaining to actually get a yield out of them. Especially if the people around you have committed to taking that set of tires at the first stop.
Yeah, I think if you were splitting the race into 3, you'd want to take your pit stop now, basically, and go from here, and not put too much fuel in, so you save your time there. As there, we've got someone has just pit. Lime Mitch has gone into the pits now, so this is very interesting. I think he should take tyres here and then not anymore, and that will be the best solution. He's definitely 2-stopping. There's no way he can make it in from here, and he is taking tyres.
All right, so listening to your strategy here, Bagsy, this is literally 25 minutes into this race. You can see there on the clock, 46 minutes remaining. We did start with an hour and 10 minutes on the clock, so it doesn't take a genius to work out that he's done the better part of 25 minutes on this set. And where will his next stop come in based on this? If we do the math, it's probably going to be with about 20 minutes or so to go if he's going to try and break this up into somewhat thirds.
Yeah, I think
Bolger
that...
as well coming in. So Bolger taking the same school of thought, and I don't know if this is just looking at the same sort of strategy and just trying to mimic what everybody else is doing, but Lime Mitch will come out in 9th place, and he'll come out with some clear track. Now, very, very important to come out with clear track, and he, being in the lead group, avoids going a lap down because he hasn't had the runs through the gravel traps and the grass and made contact with the walls that the likes of his teammate Arjun Mishra and Pierre Roy had very early in this race.
One of the things that will be interesting is that these drivers, unless they're listening into the broadcast, which I'm sure some of them might be, but they won't know what tyres people, or if people are putting on tyres, so they won't know what the decision they should make is. They don't have strategists sitting on the pit wall. Well, actually, I think some of them might have strategists sitting on the pit wall or watching the broadcast and giving them a bit of information about what's going on, but a lot of them don't, and they have to sort of make an educated guess. Sorry, and also just in the chat, Luke Rosell saying how good is Port Adelaide. They are very bad.
Yeah, I was about to say that comment might be getting deleted in the next few seconds because it's not a football chat here, Rosella. So this is the GT3 race, and your team is not doing as flash as it probably should be. Getting word from Lewis Wedding, looks like that Lime Mitch is actually going to be possibly 2-stopping. That's what Lewis Wedding's prediction is. He's going for a one-stop for Steve Bolger based on his pace.
That being said, Lewis did say, I'm not sure if I'm going to put stock in Lewis's predictions there, just because he said Bolger is going to try to do a clear one-stop, and then immediately after that, Bolger pitted for his 2-stop. So he's
race leader, guys. Race leader. Greg Tara's just had a moment. Oh, sorry, that was Noah Tara. Jeez, I thought that was the other Tara for a minute. And that's the little moment that Termo needed to seize that second place back, because he had fallen behind. That was a critical thing. We didn't actually see what had happened to Termo.
You guys were
too
busy talking about football to talk about it. I was trying to get your attention.
Here it is. So here's the replay of how Tara lost his position, coming out of interior Parabolica on the run to Gaucho, and just got himself out-braked and lost the position. But how did Termo lose that one?
I'm going to cut you off here because Tara's going back down on the inside of the main straight right now, looking for that move once again into turn 1. Holds the Nissan high and dry and gets that position. So Termo was running out of tyres in the first sector and made a mistake coming through turn 4. Did basically exactly the same thing that Noah did around the back end of the circuit. So a bit of tit for tat between these two, both making a little bit of a mistake as the tyres are starting to get into the end of their usable lifespan, because these guys have been out on track now for about 30 minutes.
Well, we were talking about Lime Mitch having clear space. He's not got it anymore because Taipan, who this is 4-track position, just made a mistake, and he is not going into the pits. No, he's going for a very
No.
defensive line there. But he got absolutely balked coming to the final corner because of Taipan's mistake. That's going to cost him a little bit of time.
Yeah, he did, and I think Taipan's just letting him have that spot back, and just in good faith, just to say, yeah, I'm sorry, I got in your way there. And let's actually have a look at that on the replay from the onboard perspective of Lion Mitch. So as they come through the last couple of corners, there is the Lamborghini going off the road. Oh, and there is the rejoin, and right, he did lose a fair bit of time coming through that. So
there's a very big checkup he had to make there. As Greg Tara ignores the pits once again. He has a 12-second lead at the moment. His lead over Lion Mitch is currently 1 minute and 8 seconds, which about tracks with it's about 1 minute to 1 minute and 5 seconds for a full service with tyres. So, which I honestly think that tyres may struggle now to make the whole race. Just looking at how Greg's are and how he just went quite wide there, it might be that you have to pit for tyres.
Yeah, last lap around for Greg Tara, 39.9, so really struggling. Not as bad as the pair behind him, 40.1 for Noah and a 40.6 for Termo. So compare that to Lion Mitch, who even with the little bit of a balk set a 39.6 last lap around. So game time, even with having to navigate Taipan, it is a significant drop off in performance at the moment, and we are at just on the 30 minutes run mark. So if these guys are looking to make a one-stop based on tyres, let alone fuel, we haven't even talked about fuel yet, just looking on tyres, they're going to have to get at least another, 3 laps out of these tyres? Because it's plus 1 lap at the end, and you can't really navigate that last lap on 0 fuel if they've got any fuel left in the tank. So what, we're saying lap 21, 22, if they want to do a one-stop?
I think it'll be more like lap 23. Just looking at where they are at the moment. Lion Mitch is set at 138.4, by the way, so Greg Tara is either going to have to react to this by pitting now and switching to a 2-stopper, or he might just be comfortable in a 1-stopper here, because he is still going. And I think he's aiming for that 1-stopper.
Noah Tara in, guys. First of the team Tara cars is in, so they don't want to be pitting side by side.
There.
Yeah,
this will
be a splash and dash.
To be fair to Greg, sorry to interrupt you, Nether, that last lap around the 39.9 was his first lap in the 39s, and it was because of a mistake in the middle sector. So he's almost gone straight back to 38s this time with a 39.0, but going up against Lion Mitch's 38.4, it is a bit of a challenge. So we'll see how this plays out in the next 5 or 6 minutes, but Noah Tara is absolutely committed to a 2-stop.
Yeah, I was about to say the same thing, Bagsy. No tyres if you wanted to double check me on that, because there comes one of the AAR Bentleys. And this is going to be very, very interesting for Noah Tara. Does he just bash out a couple of laps here and get inside that 30-minute mark and then come in and take these set of tyres? Is he doing a bit of an inverse thing? I would have thought that you would have taken the tyres.
He's doing the Flood-Stradama strategy.
I would have thought you would have come in and taken tyres on this one and run it all the way down to the, as far as you could get, and then come in and splash and dash it, and then just get back out and do the last couple of laps. He's completely taking this a different direction. He's actually trying to get the pain over and done with in the middle of the race, and then come in maybe in about 10 minutes' time, put on a new set of boots and top the juice off. And it's actually going to be a short fill on the fuel, but it's going to be a long stop because of the tyres.
Well, the interesting thing now is that Lion Mitch is about 18 seconds behind Noah Tara at the moment. So he's coming through interior parabolica now. Noah Tara is going up through the chicane.
Oh, Greg overshot the box. He's overshot the box and had to grab reverse, and he's going the same.
Yeah, he's not taking tyres either.
And I don't think Greg needs to, because his lap times have been relatively consistent. He had a little bit of a slower middle sector once again. I wonder if that's a bit of traffic that he's encountered. But this might end up working for the 2 tyres. Greg in particular, he hasn't actually had to work his tyres too hard. He hasn't been in any battles since passing Lion Mitch. So he could just could have saved a little bit of tyre underneath him, just long enough to get into the 25 minutes to go sort of region where you can put on the new set of boots and really get a yield out of them. So this could be an interesting sort of strategy play from the two Taras. I wonder if they settled on this together, and this is what they've worked out to be the optimum strategy for the pair of them.
The most important information, though, is that they are 100% two-stopping. There is no way for them to make it
now.
But Termo is still out there and hasn't stopped yet, and may have a chance at a one-stopper. So if he manages to get this lap and one more, like if he doesn't pit this lap and pits the next one round, I would say he is definitely a chance to be able to fuel save to the end, only make the one stop the tyres now, and really put the pressure on Greg Tara and force Greg Tara to have to win this race rather than Termo having to win it. Termo can and this is all dependent on if he comes in here now or not. If he comes in now, I would say, which he is, so Termo...
This is right on the cusp.
Which the thing for me makes no sense. Why are they pitting now? Why did they not pit earlier if they knew they were going to have to two-stop?
Because they didn't know that they were going to two-stop. I reckon that extra formation lap that we've been doing in this series has been part of it.
Oh, wow. That was
pretty tight.
That was very tight with the Higginson BMW to pay in the lane, and in comes Scott Murrell as well. So that will then cycle this field. That now gives the lead back to Greg Tara. And Termo's taken tyres on this run. So this will be key to see whether or not Termo can use the new tyres to his advantage and start to erode some of the gaps. Remember, he's actually racing Noah Tara. So Noah Tara has gone through well and truly now. He's at turn 1. He's actually completely through and
Lime Mitch
got
has
a
just gone
massive
past him
margin
as well.
Yeah, and Lime
so
Mitch
Lime
as
Mitch
well.
has used those tyres very well and Termo hasn't even moved yet, and Lime Mitch is passing the pit exit.
And
he must be absolutely brimming the thing. He might actually be trying to get home. So it's 35 minutes left plus one lap, which is about where we would have been from the start of the race. So if Termo can save a bit more fuel, it's going to be tight. It's going to be mighty tight.
It looks like
I think
just moved out of this race as well. I'm just getting some word through that Lachlan Burke has apparently broken his chair. This is very similar to what we've seen Ujit Mishra do apparently once or twice as well, where a chair's rolled back on him or something. When somebody needs to get these guys a bit of a better thing. So we're going to have to see how Lachlan Burke goes over the next 35 minutes or so. It's right on the half distance for him. He's going to have a hard time trying to stay on a broken chair to finish this race.
Yeah, I'm really curious about Termo, because if he's going for the one stopper, it's such a bold call, and he is going to have to just really milk this. I mean, the problem he's got is that he's a minute behind Greg at the moment, and that's, Greg can come in, do his tyres and a small amount of fuel later on and still come out ahead, and then that just stuffs Termo's strategy entirely. So I feel like it's not quite going to work for him.
On the other hand, is Termo thinking that he's going to win the race like this? Or is he looking to try and overcome, say, Lime Mitch and Noah Tara and some of the earlier stoppers? Is he sort of racing for second here?
If he was racing to win, he would have had to do what Lime Mitch did and pit earlier. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. The thing that is still a bit offset is the fact that Noah Tara and Greg Tara both didn't take tyres and will definitely have to take tyres. So that is an extra 30 seconds for both of them.
They're going to do the flight straight armor strategy. I told you it's the right way to go. Well, we'll see.
I'm on the Lime Mitch side. Flooddy's on the Tara side. Never is Switzerland, taking gold from both.
All right, well let's go with that then. I'll sit on the fence. You two can sit on either side of the fence and just throw like mud pies at each other about who's got the superior strategy call at the moment. And we'll probably find out, I'd imagine, in about 20 minutes' time, how this is all going to work. Brian Walsh has just come in for, I'm not sure if that's his first stop or if it's his second stop for him, but he is back out on the track. So everybody's been through the lane at least once.
There is something you could say about that GTR, is that it definitely sips the fuel. It seems to be the car that has the best economy. So from what we've seen so far.
Oh, whilst no, it doesn't have the best tyres on it right now. That one certainly doesn't. And I mean, he hasn't dropped position. Oh. And he's going to have to be very careful here to just get going, and he avoids the wall. So we stay green. Very, very important that we stay green for the moment, because that would then have thrown the strategy calculations completely out the window had we got a safety car.
So to go back to Steve Bolger, he's up to, once those pit stops have shaken out, he's up to 7th and closing in on Lockie Burke at the moment. He's seems to finally be getting the car under him. He's put in 23 laps and he's feeling a bit more confident in the track. He's figured out where the corners go and stuff and how to go around them faster. And he's not doing too badly, honestly. And once you consider the deficit for that he took tyres and Greg Turrer, our leader, didn't, he's about a minute behind, which is not bad at all on no practice.
That is actually pretty impressive.
I want to take a look at his lap times, actually. So at the moment, our live timing at asrleague.liveraces.com is a little bit behind.
Oh, he's into the 39s for the first.
Yeah, I was about to say, that's his first lap under a 1 minute 40. Up until that point, he's been very consistently in the 1 minute, the mid 140s. There is an outlier there of a 41 flat, the 40.9. There's his pit stops in there as well. And even toward the end of the first stint for him, he had dipped into the low 1 minute 40s before coming in for a stop. So that was when the tyres essentially for him gave up. And I think you're right, Bagsy. I think he's just started to cotton on to how the car behaves and what he needs to do to make this car work around this circuit. And from Steve Bolger's point of view, the only car that is ahead of him in the race that is for a driver that's here tonight in the point standings is Turmo. So he stands to benefit here from just circulating and just getting whatever points he can, set himself up very, very nicely for when we go to Laguna Seca in 3 weeks.
Already thinking about the points in a 10-month-long championship.
Yeah, that's right. It's all about capitalising.
Speaking of people who are setting themselves up nicely, Lime Mitch is 27 seconds off of Greg Turrer at the moment, and just starting to get a little bit more speed in comparison to him.
Yeah.
He has Lime Mitch is just lapping, I believe that's Taipan at the moment, but his last few laps have all been faster than Greg Turrer.
I was just about to bring that up, Bagsy. Great catch there. The last lap around, a 39.1 plays a 39.8 for Greg Turrer and a 40.46 rather for Noah Turrer. So the Turrers on their older tyres are beginning to struggle just a little bit, and this is the period of the race where Lime Mitch really has to put the hard yards in and find that lap time, because he's not going to have the advantage in the last stint, that's for sure. And this is all, of course, assuming that Lime Mitch doesn't change tyres for the last stint. I mean, we're expecting that he's not going to, as we've got a penalty coming up. Who's that for?
That's for Higginson.
Nathan Higginson, I believe. It may have been for speaking of pit lane, but I think it was track limits.
I think you'll find probably track limits at turn 1. There's a couple of drivers who were complaining that the track cuts were coming up on the apron just here on the edge of the circuit of the exit of turn 1. So a few drivers just trying to use a little bit too much, maybe just getting it wrong. And that has been the first man to catch that out. Now, Brendan Ross did make mention to me a bit, probably about 45 minutes ago, that might actually become an issue. And it's taken this long to actually get somebody to get a drive-through penalty for track limits. And that's actually pretty good, considering that people would have known about it for some time. But then again...
I reckon that one's a phantom track cut. He's gone over the inside apex of turn 1 to give him a track cut for it. And that's something that I found as well in practice. It's not the outside that's the problem. It's actually the inside. If you hit the curb there, you get given a track cut. So I reckon if Rossi's listening, and I know you're in the server, Rossi, I hope you are listening, I reckon that it might just be fair play to just remove that one, because I don't think that's a just penalty.
We have got Brendan Ross in there who is keeping an eye on these things as well. So we'll have to keep an ear out, see if he does serve that penalty or not.
And he's coming in now.
Okay, well, there you go. That answers that question. So,
as is Greg Turrer, by the way, from the lead.
Okay, now this is the interesting part of this equation here, gentlemen. This is what precisely I said was going to happen, that they were going to keep their old boots on. They were then going to come in, change tyres, which is what's happening, and then get going. Now the problem here is
both coming in at the same time.
There you go. They came in a lap apart last time, so this is not good for Noah Tara. He has to wait for his father, but the thing is, this is going to be gut-wrenching here.
Come on, Dad. Miscommunication.
Come on, Dad, get out the way. I need to get in the pit box, and it's not working here. Oh, there we go. There we go. So he's finally got it done. So, yeah, one of the I guess the fun things about AMS is we get to see side-by-side pit stops. We get to see this sort of behaviour happening, and now the waiting game. This is the problem because the tyres take so long. They're sitting stationary for 30 seconds. Lime Mitch has gone through to the lead for this race, but the other part of this equation is yet to play out. How are his tyres going to be when he gets to the back end of this race? Does he have anything left in the tank when it comes to just getting those last little bits of fuel in for the last couple of laps of this race? And will those tyres last?
And remember, Lime Mitch was one of the first one of that lead group to pit. He pitted around the, I'm sure Bagsy has it written down, the 49-minute mark. Was that where it was?
Yeah, it was early.
Yeah.
48 minutes, I think it was. 48 minutes left on the clock. I think it was about, he'd basically done 25-minute stint on the opening stint, and I was expecting him probably to come in around about 20 minutes remaining, so about 5 minutes from now.
Yeah, so it was 25 minutes ago, so you can expect him to split the race into 25, 25, and 20. And I don't think he'll take new tyres because that will just put him back behind and in a worse position. He's got to go on this gamble of he's got 53 seconds on Greg Tarr at the moment. You know, if he takes tyres, he'll automatically be 15 seconds behind and not able to catch up. He has to go with keep the tyres he's got. The tyres he's got will last him to the end of the race. They won't be comfortable, but they will. And go for that splash and dash. Just fill up what you need. Don't brim the tank. Fill up what you need, and then absolutely go for it. Termo he'll be touch and go with Termo, who is 30 seconds behind him, and Termo has 21 seconds on Greg Tara. So if Termo doesn't stop again, that's how much time Greg Tara has to make up on him.
So that's almost a second a minute. In fact, it's just a little bit less than, as we've got Lime Mitch just passing Nathan Higginson. That's putting Higo another lap down. So we've got a yellow flag at the top of the circuit, I think. Ujit Mishra running into a bit of
gone off.
problem.
He's in the gravel.
And it was a very innocuous sort of position, so he's actually DNF'd as a result of that. I think that must be something untoward on his end because it didn't look like an extreme incident. As we've got, I think that's Steve Bolger in the pits from 6th place. Yes, we do.
Yeah, correct. Steve Bolger's in, and that's actually put Noah Tara up to 6th place. Now, this is key for Tara as well because that little bit of a strategy miscue from the GW Racing stable has meant that Lachlan Burke has been able to go through into position 5 for the moment. There he goes through the front of shot. So Greg Tara got out ahead. Noah Tara now has to do a bit of hard work to get past the Bentley, depending on what their strategy call is.
I think Bolger took tyres again.
And Higginson's been done again for the track limits, I think, down there at turn number 1, I believe.
And I reckon it's going to be exactly the same thing. I'm just jumping on board and exactly the same thing. Just ran a tyre onto the curb at turn 1 and he's been pinged for it. Which is very frustrating.
Yeah, I'd imagine so. There was plenty of track limits testing was going on to work all this out. So I'm a bit surprised that one actually hasn't been picked up. It's not one of those ones that you would sort of expect to take maybe a fraction of curb, but not a huge amount. And I'm keeping an eye on the race leader here, guys, because I've got a funny feeling he's about to come in.
And I reckon he might have to soon because Greg Taro has just set a 38.4 last lap around, so he is flying on that new rubber.
I don't think Lime Mitch cares about what speeds Greg Taro's doing. He just cares about what the gap's going to be. I don't think he'll take tyres. I think he's just going for... As he goes very, very tight there. The other thing is Termo. The gap to Greg Tara that was 20 seconds a lap and a half ago is now 17 seconds. So Greg Tara is chomping that gap down. So Termo, if he is going for the economy run, which it definitely looks like from his onboard, will be sweating a little
Here
bit.
he comes. Yep, so he's in, and that then will mean that the Termo Nissan car 51, the customary number for Termo, will take over the lead of this race. The question will be...
Oh, he is taking tyres. No.
No, Mitch has decided he wants to take tyres. Now, this is a huge gamble for him because this is going to cost him at least 30 to 35 seconds. We're just doing the math to work out that that's how long extra you're stationary for in the pits taking tyres. Here comes the Termo Nissan. Through he goes to position 1. Mitch still stationary and stopped. Scott Murrell going through. Greg Tara going through. And Tara, I think, is about to set a new actually has maybe a new fast lap of the race. And no, just lost a couple of tenths there in the last few sectors. So Tara, the man and on the move.
Scott Murrell's just had a bit of a wide moment at turn 1 as well, and he's going to be coming under pressure from Tara now for that second position. So Tara's going to process him quickly here. Actually, he probably doesn't even need to if Lime Mitch has taken tyres, because yeah, he's coming out ahead of Lime Mitch.
Well, the end result is there's about a 5 to 6 second gap between Tara and Lime Mitch. That Lime Mitch will be hard pressed to try and catch up, but you never know. He's got slightly newer tyres, so we'll see how that plays out.
It is visual, so when you look here, you can see here's Greg Tara pursuing Scott Murrell, and there's a little flash of blue. There it is at the back of the shot. That's Lime Mitch, so he's not that far away. This shot will probably reveal it a little bit better. If there he is over the hill. So the important thing for Lime Mitch is he has taken the fresher tyres. He's got the benefit of, what is it, about 3, 4, 5 laps worth of fresher rubber to really push hard, but he's got to get a wriggle on. He's got to be chomping into it now while Scott Murrell is holding up Greg Tara.
And the thing is, though, as Murrell just has a bit of a moment coming out of the S's and into the Parabolica, there's no substitute for track position. And Bagsy,
Termo's in the pits.
Termo's in. Okay. So that kind of uncomplicates things for that overall position. But yeah, Bagsy, I could hear your frustration with Lime Mitch taking tyres. If he'd not taken the tyres there, he would be, what, 15 seconds ahead of Tara? And that would have been a much bigger challenge to reel in.
Like he would have had a chance at the win. However slim it may have been, and he would have been plenty fine to beat out Noah Tara and Termo. That being said, Termo is back out and going already. So that was a very quick splash dash, no tyres whatsoever.
Yeah, I was about to say, you're right, he's taken that pain early rather than late in the race. And while I was keeping an eye on that, Greg Tara and Scott Murrell got a little bit feisty down at turns 3 and 4. Greg had a bit of a look at a move there and couldn't quite
and Murrell's entitled to defend this because he is in the lead.
He is, and he's now got the headlights on, even though there isn't really much lap traffic ahead of him. It's a little bit further up the road in the former Taipan, but he's no real immediate threat at the moment. And Tara realises he's got to get this move done. He's got to get it done soon because Lime Mitch is starting to close this gap. Now Murrell's on the correct side here for Gancho, just to hold Tara wide again, which he's entitled to do, and does a really good job there of closing off the switchback.
Yeah, he's on much more worn tyres than Greg Tara. He's doing a sterling job here. And Greg Tara will be cursing inside his helmet at what is like the fact that Murrell is just ruining his race. Or at least attempting to ruin his race. But that gap is plummeted.
Have a look at the Sector 2 time. A 51.2 for Tara, a 49.3 for Lime Mitch. That's 2 seconds in one sector, and all because Greg hasn't been able to process this Audi of Scott Murrell. Murrell is absolutely killing Tara here, as it looks like we've lost Lachlan Burke from the race, unfortunately.
This is like the fact that, I mean, we know that Scott Murrell has to pit because he pit so much earlier. But he's doing a very good job considering his tyres are older than Greg Tara's. And Lime Mitch will be sending many Christmas cards to Scott Murrell at this point because he is pulling him back into this race.
And have a look at this from the onboard. You can just see the battle unfolding ahead. Mitch is just getting ever closer, just sector by sector, 10th by 10th. He's just starting to have a a little bit of an enjoy here.
Oh,
And here they
Tara
go
has a
again.
go. Oh, he's not able to do it though. They both got too deep in there. They were too fast and too deep in there, but Greg wasn't able to capitalize. And Lime Mitch looms ever larger.
And that will have cost Tara at least a half a second as well, that little exchange in that middle sector, which is the sector that Lime Mitch has probably been the weaker of the two drivers between himself and Greg Tara. And this is actually working out really well for him, the fact that Murrell is holding up Greg Tara through the middle sector. Right, there we go.
That was well worked. That was well worked. Unless Murrell throws it inside.
No, maybe he doesn't. No, he does.
No, that was very well worked. The wide line into the entry to Gancho, and then the undercut on the exit. Very well done from Greg. Now he's going to put some quick laps in now and hope that
Scott Murrell's actually looking to pass him again. That Audi has straight line speed, and he's looking to go back past him down to the first corner. It's not going to happen, though.
No, it won't be on this one. He'll settle in for it. Now, the next question is how much of a headache does he make a pass for Lime Mitch? And then they've got Taipan to deal with coming up as well now. So Lewis Wedding is spot on here. Cue the Jaws theme music. As this is starting to become a very entertaining and a very suspenseful little run to the flag here with just over 16 minutes of change remaining.
Just a quick sidebar, lads. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Baxi.
I was going to say, it looks like Scott Murrell might not be on anyone's Christmas card list because he's not making friends with Mitch either at this point. The Taipan does a very good job to get out of the way. Yeah.
The sidebar that I was about to make is in all this, while we've been watching Murrell give everyone headaches at the head of the field, we kind of missed the Noah Tara Turbo battle. Remember how for the pit sequence they were attached at the hip because of the delays in the pit lane for Tara. That gap is now 7 seconds, and it was 13 seconds of lost time in the pit lane for Noah Tara. So he's unfortunately found himself sitting in a bit of no man's land there off the tail of this group. He'll come up to fourth when Murrell pits, assuming Murrell pits. We're pretty sure Murrell was on a 2-stop. So it's just unfortunate for him that he's lost so much time with the pitting the same lap as his father. Oh, as Murrell's
round. So I was very lucky for Lime Mitch. Oh, Taipan, so close. It's very good evasive action from Taipan as well. Jeez, that was...
Murrell straight to the pit lane as Greg Tara sets the fastest lap of the race, a 38 flats from Greg. He's really got the hammer down now, and he's stretched out just 2 seconds.
Murrell decided not to pit. He's continuing on as we look at a replay of him doing a little pirouette
on his own
through the final corner.
He's so lucky not to take Mitch there, wasn't he?
Yeah, and then Taipan as well. I don't know if we can see an onboard from Taipan there, but that would have been very coming around the corner and being very scared about what was happening.
Probably not got a clean set of underpants after that one.
No, definitely not.
Anyway, so Scott Murrell spins out of what was second place. That will release Lime Mitch to see if he can chase Greg Tara. Yeah. But the important piece of this puzzle now is Tara, as you just saw, set the fastest lap of the race. It's a full 1.1 seconds quicker than Lime Mitch on the last lap. And that was without the traffic having to be concerned about. Now we need to get a look at the next sector split that comes up here and see how far behind Lime Mitch actually is relative to Greg Tara. 2.4 you can see there. When the sector trips here, it's now 2.5, so the gap's going up.
Something to be mentioned about Scott Murrell is that he's behind Lime Mitch now and Greg Tara, obviously. He's got Turmo and Noah Tara behind him to the tune of 12 and 17 seconds respectively, but then Higgins is the next person behind him, and he is about a minute and 10 seconds down the road. So I think for Scott, really his best choice is just take tyres and fuel, and he could go for the splash and dash, but they might as well take tyres as well, and you know you're going to be safe to the end of the race.
Yeah,
I'd agree with that.
Yeah, I'd agree with that as well, except for the fact that no matter what decision he makes right now, he will, as you said, lose that spot to Turmo. He'll probably lose Greg to Noah Tara as well, and then it's more just a case of, does he want to fight? Does he want to get to the flag? If he wants to fight, take the tyres, but you then run the risk of not being close enough to the other group of cars to really threaten them.
I think,
or do you just play safe?
I think if he if he takes tyres and he's surrendering to the fact that he's going to be finishing in 5th place, and he's just, an insurance policy so that he knows his car's going to have nice sticky rubber and he's not going to fire it off into the wall or have a spin like he did in the final corner. But on the other hand, if he can rinse this little session out long enough and get to a point where he only has to do a very quick splash and dash, then that 5th place of Noatara he might be able to fight for, because he's 18 seconds down the road. He's not going to have as good a tyres. They're going to be comparable to Noatara's. So, he might have a shot at that 5th place though.
Unfortunately, Bagsy, I don't think, even with the pit lane transit time, I don't think there is a win here for Murrell. I think he's kind of, no matter what he does, he's losing out to both Turmo and Noatara. Speaking of that pair, remember how a few laps ago I said that gap was 7 seconds? It's now less than 3. So Noah has really been turning the screw here on those fresher rubber. Last lap around, Noah was a 39.5 versus a 40.6. And that's only going to get even closer this time by. We could see some fireworks late on for 4th place here.
And keep in mind that because of the position of Scott Murrell at the moment, this is for a podium place. This is the effective 3rd place battle.
Absolutely. So plenty of intrigue here in the latter stages of this 70-minute race. We've been running just on an hour, just on 59 minutes. The battle at the front is just 2.5 seconds last lap around. Greg was in the 38s. I think Lime was as well, but we don't have lap time for him because he had a track cut on that lap. Lime certainly isn't letting Tara have his own way with it. They're both lapping pretty consistently in the 38s. So very, very close run things. We've got 10 minutes left in the race.
Yeah, 2.5 seconds. It's definitely... The race is not run yet. There is still a chance. Like, Lime Mitch is by no means out of this. He is, as you just mentioned, he's starting to match Greg Tara. So, you never know what's going to happen in these last 10 minutes.
And the battle for the effective podium between Turmo and Noatara is now less than 2 seconds as they come into Gancho. There's the gap for the lead on your screen at the moment, but a bit further back from that, just on the exit of Gancho, Noah
it's less than a second now.
It's less than a second now, yeah. It looks like Turmo is absolutely done on his tyres, and he steps a wheel off into the grass as well as we come through Parabolica out in centre. Does not seem to have anywhere near the same amount of turning confidence or power on confidence as the BMW behind him at the moment does the Nissan. We're riding on board with Noah briefly there. But you can sort of see, even without the help of too much slipstream, that the BMW... Oh, look, there's the rear's just stepping out every single quarter for Turmo. It's not going to last all that long, I don't think.
Yeah, no, the only thing Turmo can hope for is that Tara's tyres, as Tara goes for it and quite easily dispatches Turmo there, is that Tara's tyres start going through a similar period of pain later on, but I don't think that's going to help Turmo as he runs very wide there and Noatara gets position. So I think in the end of do you go with Floodstradamus or do you go with the Bagsy method, the Floodstradamus method has been proven superior here because even with a 10-second delay in pit lane, Noatara is flying.
Thank you for that, Bagsy. I appreciate that.
Well, I'll tell you what, gentlemen, it's not quite over and done with yet. We've still got to just wait to see how this gap at the front pans out. It was very briefly under 2 seconds when they got to the line last time around. It's now blown out again, so Mitch has made a mistake in Sector 1, pretty costly mistake, 1.2 seconds the other way, and then lost another 10th in Sector 2. And he's gone from being 1.9 seconds behind Tara last time around to 3.2 a lap later. So the consistency is starting to become an issue for Mitch now. As I said, he's got the younger tyres to the tune of a couple of laps, so in theory should have a little bit of an advantage, but at the moment not really able to go with the BMW that is, as we said, has just been able to really wring the neck through all these medium to low speed corners and just extract so much more pace than what the Bentley driver has been able to do.
We've got Tim Redmond in the chat asking, did Scott Murrell do a one-stopper? If I recall correctly, didn't Murrell come in at the same lap that Turmo came in, so with approximately 35 minutes plus 10 seconds left in the race? I feel like that's correct. That's what I remember, and he absolutely brimmed it at that instance. So, could Morrow be trying to steal a podium from those behind him?
I mean, he's got 16 seconds on. Noah Taro is being attacked by Turmo now, by the way. This battle is not over.
He just made a mistake at turn 3, so falling back into the Nissan's clutches.
But yeah, I mean, Scott could be pulling a fast one as Nathan Higginson has a bit of an issue through the chicane. But Scott may have pulled a fast one, and with Taro and Turmo battling each other, could be in store for a podium if he's able to eke it out to the end. It could come down to where Greg Taro crosses the line.
Yeah, I'm just having a bit of a look back through here to see when Scott Murrell actually pitted last, and it's going to be quite some time ago actually. The live timing I'm having a look at, it's just having a few dramas.
It'll be approximately 29 minutes ago. He pitted.
Yeah, it was back on lap 22, yeah. So it was, you know, sort of very, very close to the half distance marker as well. So he's going to have a. He might be able to get home here on the smell of an oily rag. It's going to be touch and go if he can do it or not.
Do we want to ride on board and see how much he's fuel saving, or whether or not if he's fuel saving? Because his pace is very impressive at this stage of the race. A 40.2 last lap around.
Yep. Yeah, we're doing a few little dramas getting our onboard cameras to work with this one. It's a couple of those little weird, wonderful features. We'll pick up the right camera and go from there. Let's actually we'll just go to the onboard bonnet cam. I think that's the one we'll have to stay with. There's a few little camera dramas going on there. So, and
in fact, he's just let Nathan Higginson go back past him. So he must be really feeling it at the minute.
All right, here you go, Flood. You can have a listen and you can work out what's going on here. What's he doing? Is he braking early? Is he letting out the throttle?
A big, huge lift there. You can hear him come off before the apex of turn 8. And short shifts it into second. Now into the S's, hard to save fuel here. Another little lift. And another lift, feathering the throttle through this final corner. Normally your foot as close to the floor as you can through there, but he really was soft on the throttle there, really trying to feather it through. He's got 5 minutes to get to. We're expecting maybe, what, 46 laps, 44 laps in that region. So it's his lap time's gone out a little bit more now.
Yeah, we're predicting 44 to 46 laps, so we're sort of going to get to that marker, I'd imagine. We're going to get to the line probably and cross at about the 43 or 44 lap mark, and you know, we'll sort of be right in that window. He's got a lot of work to do, though, Scott Murrell, if he's going to reach there, if he's in the fuel conservation mode now.
I noticed him going into the first corner there. He was just straight on the brake. He didn't have any lift and coast or anything. So,
and using the full rev range while braking as well.
A little bit untidy over the curb there on the exit of 4, so you know, even if he is trying to, that's one of the things that's hard to do when you're trying to fuel save, trying to make sure you keep the object that you are trying to steer on the right part of the circuit, because you're quite often looking over at your dashboard or whatever is doing your fuel calculations for you to work out what fuel number you should be driving to. It's a bit of an acquired art, and if you look away for too long, you end up just making a couple of little mistakes. They start to creep in, and then, as you can see there, you've got to get a fistful of steering and get it pointing the right direction.
Yeah. It's interesting to me that he's lifting off so aggressively in that that tighter section through the intro to Gancho and then through the S's here, and then not doing the same at the end of the main straight. You'd think that he'd be doing it at every opportunity, just trying to get another 100 mil here, 100 mil there. But it's a bit of an enigma here. He's got 3 minutes left to go, which will be 3 more laps with Greg Taro halfway through Sector 1 at the minute.
Yeah, somewhere along those lines. I think we've got 3 minutes left to go. I think it's going to be about 44 laps, I think, is what we'll end up with, depending on how Tara goes. And Tara's got, can't really afford to ease off a lot, because Limich is still within a couple of seconds. It's not like, remember back to Monza last year when Bolger was trying to milk the clock a little bit toward the end of the race. and he wasn't able to successfully do it because the others were too close, and we ended up with 2 laps extra instead of 1. If he had had a little bit of extra time to do it. So Tara can't afford to rest on his laurels here. He's definitely going to complete this lap, which will be lap 41, and he will get to the clock will go 0 while he is on lap 43. So he doesn't have anything to worry about here. He's guaranteed he can't shorten this race by any more laps.
Yeah, he'd have to have a very slow lap, and that wouldn't go well for him.
Yeah, well, a lap time that's close enough to 1:40 with 2 minutes left on the clock now, and he's only sort of got 10 seconds to reach the line. Yeah, he could shorten it. He'd need to do a 1:50 lap time next time around, but there's no way he's going to be able to do that because he will cross the line next time around, have about 10 seconds left on the clock, and have to do 2 laps. So Mitch just took 0.2 of a second out of him that time around as well. The gap came down from 2.7 to 2.5. So does Greg need to put a little bit of fuel saving in mind here, or does he need to preserve just a little bit just in case? This is what this next $64,000 question is going to be.
The Murrell Noah Taro difference, so there's 7 seconds at the moment, so he's lifting off a long way now. Oh, it's so far away. Oh, it's so quiet, so far away into the corner. I think Scott Murrell he's just realised what's happening at the front, and that there's going to be potentially one extra lap that he wasn't expecting.
Yeah, he's figured it all too late, unfortunately, for Murrell. Oh, that's unfortunate, because the gap was 13 seconds 3 laps ago. The last 3 laps for Scott Murrell have been 41, 43, 42. So he's really, really suffering now. And you can see it in the way that car is moving. And I know we've got Greg on screen at the moment, but you can see Noah in the background of Scott Murrell's shots at the moment now. He's gone for glory and fallen 1 lap short.
Yeah, Noah Tara doesn't need to do anything silly here. He just sort of needs to just sit back, behave himself, just keep the thing on the track, because Murrell's going to come to him, and then it'll be a double Tara podium. Which will be a first. It'll be a first time, I think, that not only are we going to potentially staring down the barrel here of Greg Tara's first ever win in ASR, and for those that are sitting on the live stream and that are sort of scratching their heads about it, I actually just went and had a quick sticky beak through the live races results, and he hasn't had a pole. This is his first pole that he's had in GT3s. In actual fact, in any series, we've got him on record according to our database. And on top of that, he's very going to be his first ever official series win if he can keep it going.
Murrell's so slow down the straight.
And here we go. And then Noah Tara just breezes past.
Gone way past
I didn't realise it was a multi-class race, guys.
And then the interesting bit will be here too. I'm going to have to go back through the history books and try and work out. I actually don't think we've ever had father and son pairings. This is the 4th father and son pairing to ever compete in ASR. We've had we've had 3 officially. Sorry, we've had the Taras were the first, then of course the Warwicks in Colin and Steve. Colin being the son, Steve being the father. We then of course had last year the Spencers, Wayne and Liam Spencer, and then the 4th set of pairing that we're looking forward to when they share a track together is going to be Scott and Braxton Stancliffe, hopefully a bit later on. But none of them have shared a podium, so this could be a pair of firsts tonight.
Double whammy for the pair of Taras, which I think will make it even more salty for Noah that he had that pit lane problem with them pitting on the same lap.
Could have been a 1-2. So
yeah,
as Murrell goes round.
Yeah, he's gone round at Gancho, so he's spun off to the inside. Now, whether or not he'll be able to recover or not, he's on his way again. But he's got a bit of margin ahead of Termo.
That might, he doesn't anymore. Termo's only 2 seconds behind him now because of that spin, and that might, if he's going for the economy run, if he can make it around this lap without pitting, he will. Which we're about to see if he goes into the pit lane or not.
Yeah, he does. Yes.
One
so there
short.
We go. 1 lap short for Scott Murrell. So had a crack, but couldn't pull it off. And if it had been one more, this had been the last lap for him, it wouldn't have been a problem. But it's halfway around the last lap for Greg Turra. The margin has shrunk a little bit again, it's down to 1.8. So Lion Mitch has done a really good job to keep the pressure on here throughout the whole entire race. But ultimately, he's probably going to end up a couple of laps short, maybe about 5 minutes or so short, of really making it a fist fight for the top step of the rostrum with 3 corners to go.
And he set his best lap of the race on the last lap as well, so really putting the hammer down at the end. But it won't have just enough, won't be just enough, unfortunately, for him, with Greg Turra coming through the Parabolica for the last time, taking home his first victory in ASR in the GT3 Round 2. Congratulations to Greg Turra. Second place, Lion Mitch. And then we have a long wait for the third place man. But what a great battle between these two. A strategy battle through the course of the race.
And that's precisely what the 70-minute duration was brought in to do. It was brought in to spice it up, to give us something to think about, to give these guys a little bit of extra work if they didn't have extra work in the cars already. And it certainly delivered. And here we go. We've been seeing this guy's praises for a few years now. We've seen flashes of brilliance. Remember Bagsy back to Jerez? I think it was in 2019 where he led half the race in the Porsche, and then the mistakes just started to creep in. Well, the strategy miscue was the only mistake on the books today, but it will get Noah Turra a podium finish in GT3. So I'm going to have to go back to see if this is actually his first podium finish. I've got a funny feeling it is, but it is the bit of history being seen tonight with the Turras becoming the first father and son pairing in ASR history to share the podium.
Yeah, very well done to both the Turras and to Lion Mitch for their race today, and very well executed strategy.
The Turbo gets home for 4th, and then Murrell with the splash and dash right at the very end gets home for 5th. So just a lap short of making that work. Only the top 5 got home on the lead lap, which is an interesting point to note. And the guys that got home 1 lap down, Steve Bolger and Nathan Higginson. Well, there's Bolger in the pits as we go back to Murrell. And then Steve Bolger, Nathan Higginson, Taipan and Steve Warwick and Brian Walsh, they all finished 1 lap down, which is a commendable effort in a 70-minute race to only go 1 lap down. Lion Mitch was the shining light for AAR tonight, guys, with his 2 teammates falling by the wayside. Ujit Mishra with some of the accident damage, Lachlan Burke with his chair issues, and then Pierre Roy, the only other non-finisher out of that one.
What a cracking race. We were a little worried heading in. 11 cars or 13 cars might not be the most enjoyable race, but boy, the 70-minute format really threw the cat amongst the pigeons and brought us a cracking strategy battle to get our heads around. And the man who finished on top come the end of it was Greg Turra. Greg, congratulations on your first ASR victory. That must be a absolutely awesome feeling.
It's yeah, to think it's taken this long since being with AMS Oz way back in the early days. It's kind of nice.
You sound remarkably chill about it.
Yeah, it was. I don't know. I was racing pretty comfortably, keeping an eye on Mitch, and he definitely was pushing me. Yeah, no, it was good.
It was good. It was great to watch as well. You guys were the only ones to run the strategy where you ran the first stop and kept the tires and then made the change at the second stop. Was that something that you two had worked out before the race, or was that something that you both sort of cottoned on to on the fly?
That'd be. Did you say me and Noah?
Yeah.
Yeah. I felt like I didn't want to do that little quick splash and dash double stint on the tires at the end. I just wanted to have a little bit fresher tires for that last stint. So I figured if you're not going to go a lap down or anything weird like that, you might as well get it out the way early and sort of have fresher rubber towards the end.
And it worked out nicely for you. A thrilling little battle with Lion Mitch at the end of the race. Was a bit terrifying having that big Bentley closer to your rearview mirror, especially with Scott Murrell holding you up that entire 5-10 minutes or so.
I did see the gap coming down. And yeah, that did play in my mind a little bit. And I didn't want to just chuck it up the inside and do something silly. So it's a tricky little circuit to make a pass stick. You really got to set them up a corner before, so you're not just sending it from way back. And then he pushed me right to the end. Like I wasn't panicking because I knew how I could drive around that track, and I had all my markers picked out, so I didn't have to think too much. I just had to keep that pegged. But he definitely put the heat on.
That he did, and you had enough to keep him behind. So congratulations on, again, your first ASR victory, Greg Taro.
Thank you very much.
Second place tonight was Mitch in the Bentley. Mitch, a great return to the GT3 Championship for you. Took 2 sets of tyres across the race. Can you talk us through that logic, please? Because I know Bagsy was quite frustrated when you did that.
Well, I figured that I would either have to save a lot of fuel to do the 1 stop, or just send it and go the 2 stop and go as hard as I can the whole race. And yeah, it was playing on my mind whether I should or should not take tyres in that first stop and go a little bit shorter in the second. But I decided to go with just getting new tyres and trying to go as fast as possible.
And it certainly set up a pretty thrilling finish. You definitely had the pace to challenge Greg, but it ended up being just a little too short at the end there. What was the difference, do you think, between yourself and Greg over the course of the night?
I think Scotty Murrell helped a fair bit in letting me catch up. But I also made a bit of a boo-boo at turn 1. I don't think I lost that much time, but it was probably enough that by the end I would have been in Taro's draft. So yeah.
Still second is a great result for you. Are we going to be seeing more of your Settler Bentley over the course of the season?
Hopefully if other things don't come up.
Awesome. It was great to have you back, and congratulations on your second place finish tonight.
Thank you.
And third place, Noah Taro, which we think is the first time a father-son pairing has stood on the podium together. Noah, congratulations on your breakthrough podium.
Oh, thank you.
Played the same strategy as your father in the end, and it worked out for you. Just take us through what was going through your head when you both came to the pits at the same time.
Well, I thought this is not good because I'm pretty sure I think I must have burned too much fuel, or originally pitted with not enough in the car because I was supposed to go another lap, and so to stop the double stack, but I missed that and costed myself about 10-ish seconds in the pits. So that was unlucky, but after that I was just cruising, then saw what happened, and I managed to get lucky.
Yeah, you didn't end up playing too much for a hand at the end. I think the gap was too big to the guys out in front. But you and Termo were in a thrilling battle as well throughout the latter half of the race. Just talk us through your battle with him and how that all played out.
Yeah, by that stage I had settled for, I think it was 5th. And then I noticed I was catching him at like a second a lap, and I figured that his tyres must be incredibly dead. And when I caught him, I made a few mistakes behind him and then had to recatch him again. And yeah, the pass wasn't too hard because I had way fresher tyres than he did. And after I pulled about a second, I got comfortable again, and then just kept cruising after that.
Yeah, it worked out quite nicely for you. A podium for both yourself and Greg. We're going to be seeing more of that through the rest of the season. Who's going to get the next one? Who's going to be on top of the next one?
That's debatable, but we'll see what happens. I reckon. I reckon we'll just see what happens.
Oh, awesome. It's great to see you guys performing well together, and great to see you both on the podium for the first time. Greg and Noah Taro, congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And that was our top 3 and a very interesting 70 minutes of Estoril. Bagsy, what for you was the sort of defining feature of the race come the end of it?
The defining feature of the race was my disappointment in in Lime Mitch not taking or taking tyres. That being said, he did end up being quite close to Greg Taro in the end. And it was probably the smarter move to secure the second rather than go all out for the first. But I was still a bit disappointed by that. But just a very well done strategy by Noah and Greg Tara, and that they worked out their strategy plan well. And apart from that little bit of a hiccup with Noah burning too much fuel, executed it very well to get a double podium for their team.
And there is the team battle in this championship, if I'm not mistaken, Nether as well. So that's a big result for them.
Yeah, correct. So there is a teams championship that is in play. We didn't have the points for that one coming into tonight. There's still a couple of things to work out with the team's points, but we will have that up during the week. And for the next time we come racing, which is going to be, as we said, at Laguna Seca, we go back to the sprint format. At a circuit the last time out, hosted a 90-minute encounter. And Bagsy, you were the one, only the two of us were around doing the commentary for that one back then. Flood, unfortunately, wasn't on the scene. But what do you remember from Laguna Seca, 3 years ago?
I'll be honest, very little. Most of my
probably me too, actually. I have to go back and watch the tape, actually.
Yeah, I'd have to have a look at it. Most of my memories are filled with things that happen in Monza, so yeah, I'll definitely have to go back and see what the what happened there, because well, was that a 90-minute or an hour long or a 2-hour long race potentially?
Yeah, I think it was a 90-minute race, actually. The one thing that sticks out in my mind was we invented, I guess, what was called the Brock Harvey rule, because remember it was crawling around. I think he had some issues with the game freezing or having some issues, and I think it did like an 8-minute lap time on the last lap to be classified, but you lost the championship, of course. And then I think the rule was brought in that you had to complete the last lap within X amount of time of the race leader, because there was a few. It caused a lot of grief for us trying to work out the points for how everything was after all of that. So we're not going to have any issues with it this time around, but I think it's probably better that it's hosting a dual sprint format rather than the longer distance format. Seems to be a bit more of a track I would associate with the shorter distance racing.
Yeah, I think it definitely. I mean, normally for the most part, people would be used to Laguna Seca from various club racing in MotoGP and that, where it is a much shorter race. So I don't know how much actual endurance style racing it gets. Flood would know though.
Yeah, that'll be what we throw to Flood for.
It's actually one of the rounds that used to host a sprint race in the IMSA Championship. So a 1 hour class split race. So it used to be the Prototype Challenge and GTD in one race, and then the GT Le Mans and the prototype cars, the full prototypes, in another race. Since then, that's kind of all sort of homologated into 1 2 hour 40 minutes, which is the sprint format for the IMSA Championship. So it for a track, an IMSA track, a sprint race makes sense. So I'm happy with that.
Fantastic. Well, what we will do is we will leave it till then to see how things go. That's on the 29th of May, so in about 3 weeks from now. And on behalf of Josh Baggs and Michael Zalavari and myself, thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time. Till then, drive safely, and bye for now.